Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. My name is Timothy Okwegolen. I am a clinical research associate. Today I'm going to be taking you on clinical drug development, and I'm also going to be talking about the toxicology, what toxicology is all about. You might ask as well as what is clinical drug development, or what is the meaning of clinical drug development. Clinical drug development simply means clinical trial of drugs. There are so many things that happen before a drug can get into the market. Sometimes when you're sick, you go to your doctor or you visit your doctor and you prescribe a drug for you. You take it to the pharmacy and they will give it to you. But you do not know exactly what happens before that drug gets to you through the pharmacy. So what I'm going to be telling you today is a process that takes place before the drug gets to you. So before I go into clinical drug development proper, I'm going to be talking about toxicology. So before we move on to the stage of clinical drug development, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or NAFDAC, or any regulatory body of a particular country have to approve the data from the toxicological test. So we normally conduct toxicological studies on animals. And these animals ranges from mice, rats, dog, mimosas, chimps, and many of them. So, more reasons why you take a particular animal for a particular study depends on that animal's gene also, how in relation to man, or exactly what you're trying to find in that animal might also have something to do with the human being. For instance, if you're looking for a HIV studies or doing a HIV antiretroviral drug, you probably use a mice or a rat, because like I said, rat or mice has about 98% genome of a man. That is in relation to a man's genome. So when you use mice or rats, it might give you an accurate result you're looking for. So before you even reach the toxicological stage, there's what we call the new chemical entity. There's other things you need to do when we talk about the screening of medicinal plant and combinatorial chemistry, and looking about computational studies and all that, driving to the structure of the drugs. And before you can even look at the structure of the drug and match it with the structure of the illness or the disease you're talking about, and before you can now produce your new chemical entity, your tablet or your capsule, whatever you want to use, and before you can do that, you must get approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, for example, or European Medical Agency. Okay, so you get approval to do what? To do the first trial in man, which is the clinical studies, which is the clinical drug development of the drug. And when you're doing the clinical drug development, there are phases. You have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. In the phase 1, you use the healthy volunteers. And a healthy volunteer is somebody who hasn't got any underlying medical issues or sickness or whatsoever. And then before they can participate in this clinical trials, there are things they have to go through. They have to go through the consent forms where the pharmaceutical company or the clinical research organization will give them the details of the research they are conducting on them. You have to tell them everything, the risk and the benefit of the research. And when they are going to sign the consent form, the pharmaceutical company or the CRO make sure that they were not induced or bribed into participating in the clinical trials. So the money they pay them is not as a result of inducement, it's just for their discomfort that they pay them that particular amount of money. It could be £5,000, it could be £3,000, it could be £2,000. So that's what they pay them. And when they pay them £1,000 for their inconvenience in the studies. So you're not trying to bribe them and induce them to continue to come. And there are things they perform on their body. You have to do ECG, electrocardiogram test. You have to do the blood test, their blood pressures, and all the vital signs. And the results will be in interval of times. You have the pharmaceutical physician, you have the nurses, you have the clinical research associate, you have the clinical trial administrator, and all the people working in the clinical settings for the clinical trials. So when they have gone through it, they have to sign. You don't have to force them to sign to be involved in the clinical trial. Because if you force them to do that, it has gone against the medical ethics. Okay? So you don't force anybody, they willingly participate they will freely and willingly participate in the clinical trials without any form. And you have to make sure that I have gone through all the consent forms and I have understood what the consent form is talking about. And I have understood the benefits and the risk. But in the medical ethics, the benefit must outweigh the risk involved. The benefit must outweigh the risk involved. So if the benefit outweighs the risk involved, then it can be allowed. Therefore, before these people can participate in the clinical trial, they also have to sign the consent form. So mental incapacitated patients are not allowed to do what? To consent for themselves. Mental incapacitated patients are people who are mental, people who have schizophrenia or who kind of mental retardations. They cannot on their own freely sign a consent form. In that case, somebody will come and sign for them. Either their parents or their relatives will come and go through this thing and sign for them. Then people who are suffering, children, cannot participate in clinical trials except where their parents have done what? Have consented for them. Even when the parents have consented for them, a child might say, no, you cannot put the test on me. And you cannot force her to do the test. So that's the process. Then when they have gone through that, then we start the phase 1 proper, the phase 1 clinical trials. Now, when the phase 1 clinical trials, we're looking for what? We're looking for safety parameters.